Okay, we're at the point now where we're going to actually put the lace on the collar. Let me get some light in here. It's getting darker. I wasn't happy with the lace. So what I ended up doing was I ended up cutting off 2 of the lace scallops. I thought there were just too many gathers in it. So I ended up cutting 2 scallops off. Okay, so here we are with our bodice front. Now, because we're supposed to do, according to the directions, it says to cut a 20-inch length of 5/8 of an inch wide lace and gather. On the right sides, it says pin lace to the neck edge between the notches, turning under raw edges. Okay, so the instructions are telling us that we need to just turn this under. But once you have the, it would be okay if that's what you want to do, but I prefer not to do that. So because the stomacher is going to come up to the same point that this notch is, I kind of want them to overlap a little bit. So I'm going to take my piece of lace and I'm going to put it halfway down that notch. And I'm going to put it in this location, this direction, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it in. I'm not going to put it flush. I'm going to turn it in and I'm going to give myself some little ruffles here. So, do you see? Let me see if you can see that. See how that is? I've got that sticking out so that by the time I sew that down to the neckline, I'm going to have to cut off some of that lace right here because I don't want any raw edges on my lace. So let me do that again so you can see what I'm talking about. So now let's take the other side and do the same exact thing in the same location as the other side of the lace. So I'm going to go halfway down, put that right in the middle, and I'm going to pin the bottom of my lace where the other side is, and then I'm going to match them up to make sure they're in the exact same location. Okay, so now I'm going to give that enough of a gather here so that when the lace turns up to the other side, I'll cut off whatever that residue is. Okay, so here we've got, let's make sure they're in the same location so you can line your bodice up together and make sure that both of your laces are in the same spot. If they're not, adjust them. So obviously mine are not. This side's much down, about 1/4 of an inch than the other side, which is going to give me a funny looking edge of my collar. So let's go ahead and bring that down and put it back in the right location so we have matching edges on both sides. Okay, so we're going to turn that. We're going to make enough. This is what it's going to look like when you've got your seam put in. So you might want to have a little bit more gather there. So what we're doing by pinning this down like this is creating that right here. Okay, so if you, I didn't give as much of a gather as I should have on one side, and that's why one puckers in a little bit more. But now that I've done this first one, I pretty much know what I want to do. I want that lace to be, when you turn it this way, I want that lace to lay properly when it's turned to the right side. Okay, so just keep going, keep putting your laces. Now you go ahead and pin it down where you think you're going to like your scallops on your laces. So even though you have it gathered, you may want to adjust your gathers so it looks nice all the way around the entire bodice. So just keep laying them out. If you don't like the way they look, then tighten them up a little bit. Okay, you might want to simultaneously work from side to side so you get the same amount of gathers on each one so they look uniform on each side of your bodice. If you don't want to use lace, don't use lace. You can use a piece of gathered, you can use the same fabric and then just put a ruffle that's a gathered ruffle of the same fabric. It's up to you. In fact, you don't even have to put lace on here at all if you don't want to. You can just go with a really pretty outside trim and just use a lace trim. You know, there's just, once you make this once, you're going to realize how many different patterns you can make out of this same one dress. I think I said that already about, like, you know, if you ever seen like Snow White and, you know, the TV versions where they always had the Wicked Queen, and that Wicked Queen always had that big collar that came up around her back. It's the same thing here. You could just do the same thing with fabric and use that, what is it, that really thick Decobond interfacing, so it'll stand up and really give you a really big collar in the back. You know, like, you know, when the Wicked Queen goes mirror, mirror on the wall, that kind of outfit. Okay, so let's see, how does that look? So check your ruffles. You know, this is the time you want to see what it looks like. If it looks pretty good this way, it'll probably look pretty good when you actually sew it down. So let's go ahead and put a basting stitch in here. You're going to want to baste it so that it's away from your sew line, so you don't see the stitches on the other side. And as far as all these gathering strings, we'll just cut them off when we finish sewing it on, because we don't need them anymore. But you can make sure all your gathers are just where you want them. If they're not, put in a pin, and you can adjust the gathers as you're sewing. Okay, so I think we're pretty good. Let's go ahead and put a basting seam in here. Okay, let me go back to where I was. We'll just go to a regular stitch, and we'll add a bigger stitch, and we'll go away from the edge. Okay, so like I said, you're going to have that, so you're going to sew on the fabric. Forget about these laces, because this is what we're going to cut off. Okay, so we're sewing on the fabric, even though the lace, like I said. Okay, so just keep sewing. Pull your pins out as you get to them. I'm right in the way of you seeing what I'm doing. Let's see if you can see what I see. Okay, let's see if I can move this way a little bit. Okay, so let me adjust that lace. It was a little bit too far in. Okay, next pin out. I don't know if I like that piece of lace sticking out, so make a little adjustment here. Okay, put it down. Pull your pin out. Come around. Okay, stay straight on the fabric, so look right through that lace. Okay, so here we go. I didn't even think about opening up my gathers here. Yeah, I caught my back seam, so I hope I did fine. Okay, so here we go. We've got our lace in. So let's go ahead and get rid of all these strings. What we can do now is we can turn this over, and we can also cut off that. Let's go ahead and cut off that extra lace. We don't want that. We don't want to put that in our. We don't want to put that in our final piece. So just cut it off. Okay, let's get rid of all of these gathering strings also. Okay, now a good thing you can do if you want to, I mean you don't have to, but if you really do want to see what it's going to look like on the doll before you sew your facing on, you can take pins and then just pin your, you can take pins and just pin this down. So let's just pin this down all the way around. Well, you can't pin it all the way around, it won't really lay flat. Let's just put about 3 pins in it. Okay, so let's get our doll. Get rid of this. Okay, so here's Kyla. Let me see if I can bend her legs so I can see better. Oh, she's not going to stay. Let me just put it on there so you can see what I'm saying. Okay, so that's basically, once they get lined up, that is what the lace is going to look like. So if you don't like what it looks like, you're going to want to make your changes now before you put your facing on, because otherwise you're going to have to take everything out. So this is a good way to look to see if you even like how it is going to look. These are going to hook together. I think it'll be fine. I think this will be fine once we get it on. But see how that, let's see how these even up. Yeah, see, these 2 laces here just about fit good. Okay, so that's going to be her neckline. I guess that's a pretty lace. I think that was a better choice than my other one. But okay, all right, so now you know that the lace looks good. You can go ahead and start your facing. So let's take these pins out. We don't need these anymore. And you're probably going to find a whole bunch of threads you're going to want to cut too. Okay. Now as far as the facing goes on the instructions, it just says to overlock or overcast your facing edges. There is no turn under. A lot of your patterns will always have your facings turn under, but in this case it doesn't. And I didn't turn mine under either. I just did a overcast, an overlock stitch on the whole thing. I didn't even bother turning anything under. You know, it's up to you. You have enough if you want to turn it under. But when you turn it under, you're going to get that extra bulk in there too. But it depends on how finished you want everything to look. If you really want it finished and you really want it neat, then instead of doing the overlock, you could turn under 1/4 of an inch and have a finished edge. But I did it the way the instruction called for it, and the instruction said don't turn them under, just finish your edges off. Okay, so now we're dealing with our facings. So the facings is just what's going to be on top of that lace, and they'll finish off that top part of the bodice. Don't put your side seams in until we're done with the sleeves and everything, because this is our next step. Our next step, according to the instructions, is to sew our facings on. Okay, so match your darts. It didn't turn out. Probably the way I drew my lines. Okay, so that's going to be that one. And this is going to be this one. So match your darts. Okay. Mine didn't actually match, but it's just the way I drew them. I didn't use the actual pattern. I drew mine on freezer paper. So you just want to get them as close as you can together. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our regular stitching line. And let's put in a couple of these side seams. Okay, there's the one side. Yep. Side two. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just press these, press them open. If you want to get rid of some of this bulk, you can. If they don't line up exactly, you can go ahead and just trim them down. There's one, and then this one over here. Cut some of your strings out. Open them up. Okay, you can trim that down too if you don't want it there. Okay. Alright, same with this side. Since we're going to overlock them, we don't want them to look nice, so let's just trim those down. Same with this side, we'll trim these down. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to overlock the outside of the facing, and that is your neck facing right there. Okay, so take your overlock, your G-foot, okay, go to your overlock stitch, and go ahead and put in your overlock. You want to do the outside of the the outside of the facing. So there's your facing, and you are overlocking the outside. Can you see on here? You're doing this right now, this overlock. Okay, when you get close to your seams, make sure they lay open. That one's open. Okay, lift up and turn a little bit.